Oh, Byron, my Byron. Welcome, everyone. This is Smallville, Season 2, Episode 5 we're talking about today. Here on Mail Fuzz TV, I'm Pierre. That ginger shaking his head is Connor.
I'm shaking my head because every week I regret agreeing to this even more.
This episode is about a secret admirer who's leaving Lana fancy letters with a seal, and he's writing calligraphy. He's writing with a quill, and he is named Byron, and he's basically out of the 17th century. Let's just call it what it is.
90. Wait, which way around the centuries? I'll say 19th century.
18 something. You try to say?
Yeah, mid 1800s.
1800s. That's the easy way to say. Say 1800s. You can't mess up that one.
Yeah, that's true. Look, this episode made me drink more than I wanted to.
Oh, it's got a few doozies in the foreshadowing nonsense column.
Yeah, this was not my fault.
Early on in the episode, so Lana gets this secret letter from an admirer who leaves it at her parents' grave, and she finds it in the middle of the night.
Because Lana visits her parents' grave on a horse in the middle of the night on a regular basis.
Apparently so, and she sees just like in the distance someone running off, which honestly should be sending up a red flag that this is some creepy stalker dude. But whatever.
But he left a poem, so it's fine.
Yeah, left a very, very well written poem. And
according to Lex.
According to Lex. And she's showing the poem to Lana and Pete, and then Clark comes in, and Chloe's got a big smirk in her face because Lana's got an admirer. Things are still awkward between Lana and Clark after everything they did last episode, although she seems to be over it by the end of this episode, to be honest. I feel like that's done now. the awkwardness of him ditching her in a bar seems to be gone already.
It's a one episode problem, don't worry about it.
But Clark looks at it and calls it a bit mushy, and Chloe leans in and says, "Oh, I forgot." I know, maybe it's Lana. I guess Lana says it actually. "Oh yeah, I forgot. Clark Kent, a man of steel."
That sounds like a Lana line.
Yeah. I die.
That was the first time I had to drink this episode.
I think that's the worst one though, because I yelled in pain when she said that. I was like, oh, I can't take it. It made me physically hurt.
And I reacted because it was an awful line, but I'd forgotten the drinking rule, so I didn't immediately reach for something.
And then
you reminded me.
The middle was not as foreshadowed as much, but like when they're talking about Byron later, the mom says they had him strapped to a table and did experiments like he was an alien or something, and Clark's standing right there. That was the other sort of forced line.
That was very bad, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one is, so Martha's taking a job as Lionel's assistant this episode, and there's a helicopter coming into the mansion, and Lex is saying, "Oh yeah, my dad flies everywhere in the helicopter. Does your mum fly much or something like that?
Does your family fly much?"
Yeah, and Clark's like, "No, my family doesn't fly much." And Lex responds with, "Trust me, Clark, that's about to change." I think Man of Steel was more painful, but that one's almost as bad as far as the foreshadowing goes.
Both of them hurt my liver. You know, that's yeah. I finished off a bottle this episode.
I started a new one.
Admittedly, it wasn't. I did start a new one. Yeah, it wasn't a significantly full bottle, but it made me finish it, which is, you know, it's an achievement. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, the big things to talk about here, before we get to the character stuff, is that Byron, the freak of the week, if we're calling him that,
who's called Byron, who's a poet, who they address is named after Byron. By asking him, and he goes, "No, he's named after his great uncle." "No, you're not. You're named after Byron." And his surname is Moore, another poet who was, you know, friends and colleagues with Byron. They're not subtle in this episode.
No, I mean, that's the thing. So his parents are keeping him trapped in a basement, and I was thinking werewolf, you know, that kind of vibe. But he's dressed like he's from the 1800s.
He has the scarf and everything.
And he's got long hair, and the way he sort of talks, like, this is very, like I said at the end of the episode, this is like Lana's found her Edward as an Edward from Twilight, and Twilight doesn't exist yet, but that's what this guy is to her.
Look, I want to point out to the audience. You said Edward Cullen. You knew the surname. You didn't say Edward from Twilight. You knew the whole thing.
Yeah, because I had to watch. I was allowed to do the last one, but I had to watch them all for streams, so I remember Edward Cullen.
I know, but I want the audience to know that you know the full name.
I know Bella Swan. I don't know what Jacob's last name is though. Like in my head, I want to say Tremblay, but that's the kid actor, so it's not that.
It is the kid actor. He's the one in a Brie Larson movie.
Room.
That's the one.
Yes.
Not The Room.
No, very different. Yeah. Although I did bring up Tommy Wiseau while we were watching this episode.
You did, yeah. Full circle.
Yeah, so he's dressed like he's out of the 1800s for some reason, and that's never explained. Can we there's never a justifiable reason?
Okay. Am I defending Smallville here?
That sounds like you're about to.
People can have a sense of fashion.
Tread lightly. Come on.
They don't have to dress exactly according to what society demands.
This is not just a sense of fashion. He is head to toe looks like he's out of to the point where
he is dressed like Byron. Shut up.
At the start of the episode, I thought we were going to find out he had been alive for 200 years. Right? That's literally where I thought we were going with it, because I thought, he's still dressing like he did when he was a teenager.
Yeah.
That's why
he's dressed like Byron.
Oh dear. But it turns out he's not a werewolf. He's actually more of a Jekyll and Hyde, but the Hyde only comes out because of sunlight. So they trap him in the basement like a werewolf because there is something in the time of day that affects his transformation.
And they chain him up at one point.
Yeah, they chain him up at one point just because they don't trust him to try and escape, even though he knows he'll turn into a monster, but whatever.
Well, he did try and escape anyway.
I feel the reason why it's a Jekyll or a Hyde situation and not a werewolf is just to save money, because they'd have to do like a werewolf outfit. Whereas here, what do they do instead? They give him some bumps in the forehead, which was very reminiscent of something. Connor felt the need to point this out when we were watching it. What did this look like, this makeup?
I plead the fifth. I don't want to say.
You're not American. You can't plead the fifth. We have no fifth.
Shit. I may have, as we were watching it, very reluctantly pointed out that he looked like a vampire from a certain hit television series.
Yeah, they give him,
it hurt my soul.
They modulate his voice down and they give him these pure black eyes, but yeah, the bumps on his head were very much like the vampires from Buffy. He didn't have the fangs, of course, so the mouth part, but the forehead part definitely looked Buffy-esque.
At a glance, this was definitely not the only thing that this show has stolen from Buffy.
Oh, you seriously? You think?
Look, just because I don't necessarily love that show exactly as much as you do, and I resent the fact that you will reference it at any opportunity, it doesn't mean it wasn't actually explicitly influential on this specific show.
Well, I'm actually going to tangent here because there's something that I need to bring up to your attention.
Oh, shit. Was there an actor?
Now this will be wildly... No, it's not from this episode. Now this will be a while ago by the time this goes out to the public. All the patrons who get this soon will have this fresh in their memory. But it just so happens that Star Trek Strange New Worlds just had a musical episode. I saw the comment.
I don't need to hear it.
It just had a musical episode, right?
I saw the comment.
What, where else to rub it in your face?
Yes, specifically the one that said to rub it in my face. I saw that.
There was a reference to Once More With Feeling, as per the bunnies, it must be bunnies.
Just because it had a musical episode doesn't mean it's a reference to Buffy.
Well, actually,
even if this specifically was a reference to Buffy.
Like every comment's I thought I was reaching, maybe looking for it. Every comment said no, everyone's agreeing this is a Buffy reference.
I hate TV. TV should have stopped 20 years ago, so there couldn't be any more references to Buffy, so that you couldn't pull these out of the bag.
Well, this was the writers of Star Trek Strange New Worlds who were putting this one in.
And if TV had stopped 20 years ago, this wouldn't have happened.
All right, so So Byron, how he even knows Lana enough to have a crush on her to leave her letters when he's. Well, yeah, I get that he's stalking her, but which, by the way, so this letter comes out, right? Lana's showing it to Clark and that, and Clark's like, "Hey, isn't it a bit stalkery that he's like watching you from a distance?" And Lana turns and says, "Wait, have you never admired someone from a distance, Clark?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what about that telescope in the bar, Clark?
Yeah.
What about that?"
She knows. That's why she's saying it, and he looks appropriately ashamed.
Yes, and of course, when Byron does get back out, he comes see Lana, who, by the way, has fallen asleep at her parents' grave, waiting for the admirer to show back up. Which, look, can I give my advice? This is genuine advice to young teenage women specifically, right? I mean, it applies to all ages really, but young women especially. One letter from someone you don't know is not a good reason to leave yourself vulnerable in the middle of the night in a cemetery for someone who may, be a stalker. I just, it's a good idea to not do that. I couldn't believe that this was a choice that Lana in the show had made. And it's another one of those moments where I'm like, she's supposed to be like 16 right now. This is absurd.
The mildest defense. I don't think she intended to fall asleep.
Well, I know that, but even waiting for him, like...
Yeah. But, again, mildest defense of the writing in the show, not of Lana, the character.
Mm-hmm.
I think the point is that 16-year-olds have poor judgment and will wait in the cemetery for someone who they think is into them because attention. Okay,
so on this same theme, though, of, hey, they're actually supposed to be 16 right now.
It's just Lex point.
Yeah. So Lana, for some reason, when Lana's working at the coffee shop after school, she's left this letter on the counter of her place of work, and Lex is just,
picked it up and had a glance because it's on the counter.
And she's like, "Oh no, that's private." And then he kind of goes, "Go, let me read it." And she's like, "All right, read it." And he reads a bit of the poetry, and then they're discussing poetry. And Lex looks this 16-year-old, and again, she looks older than that because she's an actress on a TV show. But keep in mind, this is supposed to be like a 16-year-old girl, maybe 17 at most. He looks her in the eye and says, "But this poetry is really about the seduction," and looks her right in the eye.
It's not even this poetry. It's, people don't understand poetry, but poetry as a whole, it's all about seduction.
Yeah, and stares at her right in the eye. I can't imagine saying to a teenager that something is about seduction. Not in a one-on-one scenario, okay? Certainly.
I quoted the name of an album. I don't remember the name of the album. It was not safe for work.
Okay.
Is then whatever the album was. It was specifically it was a sentence you wouldn't want to hear someone say, right?
Okay.
I don't want to repeat it.
That's fair. Is it an artist to mention?
No, it was various artists. It was a compilation album.
Okay.
The context for this was I was searching Amazon's pre-orders for vinyl records to just have a look. Hey, what's coming up? See if there's anything interesting. And there's a guy at work who he's a strange guy. Let me put this out there. Great, lovely guy, strange guy. Has how some people frame their vinyls because they're quite a nice size for art.
Yeah.
So yeah, he has one with a penis and some boobs on his wall, and he's been on the lookout for one with a vagina on.
As you do,
just to complete the theme at this point. And he said to me, "Hey, can you keep an eye out if you see an album? Can you let me know?" And whatever this album was, the name made me think, oh, maybe this would have that on the art. It didn't, as it turned out. But I said to him, "Oh, hey, I saw this, and it was in the Amazon top pre-orders, so it was not like an unknown thing."
Mm-hmm.
I was it was, and there was this 19-year-old girl who, again, I'm friends with at work, who was stood next to me. And she said to me, "Please never, ever say that sentence again around me." Because it was awful. And I agree it was awful. I was just quoting the name of an album. The fact that Lex can say this to a 16-year-old girl with a straight face is horrific.
Yeah, you're a creepy old man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just that scene really stuck out to me. But of course, Lana's waited around for this guy to show up. He does. He eventually does, and we've had a glimpse of his home life by this point. We'll talk about that sort of separately. But he comes running at her, or he says he has to go away. He can't stay. And what is it that makes Clark run in? Because Clark just shows up out of nowhere, then tackles him.
I don't know. Clark's being overprotective and is like, "Hey, there's a guy here. I must intervene."
Yes, which inadvertently reveals that he must have been stalking her. Now, in fact, no, he has to have been, because he's not got his super hearing yet. So this isn't even just a case of, oh, he's at the farm, he hears a
have we not had the super hearing yet?
No, that's season 3. That's a season 3 episode.
Oh, Jesus. That's so far away.
There's no super hearing yet. So he is like keeping tabs. This is him keeping in pursuit.
Yeah, full stalking.
Full stalking.
Like Byron.
It just so happens that Clark has super speed and is good at it and not being noticed to a point. So
until he just runs out.
Until he just runs out and tackles him, and Byron hits his head, and everything's all awkward because, oh, Clark, you've just hurt this man, and he's not meant any.
Man's on him, strong.
Yeah, you know what I mean. He's not meant any harm. And on that subject, the subplot with Lionel is him firing his latest assistant. We'll get to his subplot. Oh, Tad, that was his name. You're right. But I commented that who is this 12-year-old and why is he wearing a suit? Because he looked like a really young guy.
And I hate that I know that his name is Tad and I remember it. Like a good 40 minutes later at this point. So
they take Tad back to the Talon. I had to think of it.
They take Byron back to the Talon.
Oh, sorry, not Tad. Oh, this episode would have taken a turn if Tad was now swapped with Byron. Jeez. Yeah, they take Byron back to the Talon, and
I'm the one that's drinking.
They give him some cake and some coffee because that's what you need for a concussion.
I think a slice of cake and 2 cappuccinos is what they say later.
Oh, okay, there you go. He seems to enjoy it.
That's how they know he's not a ghost, because he drank 2 cappuccinos and ate some cake.
Well, this is what comes up when they take him back to his place, and he's freaking out because like sun's rising. His parents are mad. His dad's holding a shotgun, and they see enough the way he's pulled in the house that Clark and Lana are like, "Wait, he's been abused by his parents. This is awful. We have to do something."
And he does have some scars on his wrist.
Yes.
That are,
to be like, regardless of any of the bullshit of like the all the scenarios that have been up until this point, their suspicion that he has been abused by his parents is perfectly valid at this point.
Yeah.
Right? Perfectly valid. So they go back to Clark's house where Jonathan and Martha are debating their plot. They come in and they're like, "Wait, have you two been out all night?" And Clark's like, "It's not what you think." But
as much as I wish it was, not this time.
As much as I wish we were in the woods somewhere, going at it like rabbits, and I was, trying my best not to break her in half.
Were they going out like rabbits or like bunnies?
Bunnies! Bunnies, it must be bunnies!
Oh, I hit myself.
So, there's a joke in season 3 of Ted Lasso where Roy Kent makes a silly pun, and then there's a pause, and then he just goes, "I hear what you've done to me," under his breath.
That's how I feel all the time when I record with you. I knew there was a reason I related to Roy Kent.
So yeah, getting over the awkwardness that your teenage son and this girl have basically been out all night together. They're like, "Wait, you're saying someone's been abused? Okay, we'll take that seriously." So smash cut to Jonathan and the sheriff with Lana and Clark all showing up at the house together, and the sheriff asking to see their son. To which the twist of the episode is that our son's been dead for 8 years. How dare you?
He drowned in Crater Lake. I think there's a small bit of like nuance that the episode doesn't actually explicitly say. Is that, so we know as an audience, hey, Crater Lake is Crater Lake because of meteors.
Yes.
Right? They don't say, "Oh, hey, he did drown, he came back from there, and that's why he's a meteor freak." There's no point that it actually addresses that. Yeah, meteor freak is the term that they use a lot.
I think that's what is absolutely what happened, though, right?
Yes, he died and was the meteor rock in.
And then he was
lake.
Experimented on by Lionel's scientists, and then they got a death certificate and hid him in their basement. so they would leave him alone.
Yes. But I do slightly appreciate that they never felt the need to say, hey, he died in Crater Lake, meteors. You know, they don't actually explicitly say that like they usually do on this show.
Maybe they're just thinking, you know what, we're 20 plus episodes in, we've given the same excuse for every single superpowers.
Maybe they get it by now. Yeah, and you know what, we do get it by now.
Yeah, none of this explains why he's out of the 1800s.
Poetry.
I think they imply in the episode that it's because he's homeschooled. If you're homeschooled, you act like you're from a different century, apparently.
If you're homeschooled, you like Shakespeare. Actually, I like Shakespeare, so that's not true. But if you're homeschooled, you like poetry.
Okay. Well,
screw you, everyone who likes poetry.
Well, Clark and Lana, insist that they met this guy and he went in there under duress. So the sheriff's going to get a warrant. But don't worry, because Chloe can get death certificates off her Mack.
She knows a guy.
She knows how to do it on her Mack. She's got 3 Macks in that office at school, which is her office because she's a student and she has an office because she runs the school newspaper.
To be fair, she has a source. She knows a guy.
Source.
She knows a guy who can get the certificates. Yeah. It's not just the Mack itself.
I'll just give it the credit of a doubt. The benefit of the doubt is what I'm trying to say.
Again, I'm the one that's been drinking, people, not him.
Right. And I'm just going to assume that having a school paper is common enough in the US that there is at least a dedicated room for which to produce said newspaper. And maybe this embellishes it a little bit because it looks like more of an office with multiple desks and like computers and shit. But I'll accept that this is somewhat based in truth.
This is the only show I've ever seen that has it as a relevant point. But sure, why not? Yeah.
My school didn't have a newspaper. So, I mean, I don't know.
My school barely had a football team.
We technically had a radio, but when I say radio, it was just like the DJ booth that controlled this music that was playing throughout the school. It wasn't exactly a radio show.
We did not. That would have been out of our school budget.
Okay, well, that's good to know. If it makes you feel any better, we didn't have a pool, but the school that was closest to us did have a pool, and it was it felt like we were the lesser citizens.
We also did not have a pool, and the school closest to us did not have a pool, and we still had a rivalry with them.
Over what?
That said, I don't know. Don't every school that's close to each other have a rivalry?
I don't know.
I know one year, someone in my year got taken by the police because they threw a snowball at a kid from that next school that had a rock in it. And the rock kind of injured them. And there may or may not have been a time when people from that school scaled our fence with knives. I maybe didn't live in the best area.
You're making this sound like you were in Detroit. Like, there's some shit.
Did you not have a school rivalry where you went at each other with knives?
No, I did not.
Then we did not have the same childhood.
English people love to joke that Scottish people are a bunch of savages, and this is not sounding like I lived in the savage neighbourhood, okay?
I went to a Catholic school. We had a rivalry with a public, non-Catholic school.
It was like the Crusades then. There was
It was the Crusades. We had knives. There were stabbings. There were rock-related snowball injuries. What do you want me to say?
Did no one refer to that as a loaded snowball? Because that's clearly what it should be called.
It should have been called. Yeah.
Just, throw that out there. Anyway.
We also did that once at a bus driver, and that also got the police's attention.
Well, yeah, that's assault. That is just straight up assault. Of course you did.
More than that, it was grievous bodily harm.
If it lands properly, yeah, I suspect it is.
It did. It was.
All right. Anyway, so it's like, okay, what's going on? So Clark goes back to the house with Pete because Pete knows he's got powers now, right? So he's got someone he can talk to.
And now, as of this scene, he knows he can't see through lead.
But he didn't before because he learns it in this scene.
Yeah.
So good to know because we debated this in a previous episode. But yeah, they find the entrance to the thing. Also, this house is very Texas Chainsaw. There's like skeletons of animals up in
and
the...
they have a saw, not a saw, like a swing set made out of sawed bones.
Yes, it's like skulls,
like animal bones and skulls, and
antlers
ribs.
and things. Yeah.
Why would you make your swing set out of that?
This was the scene that the guy that made True Detective saw that inspired him to do his entire season.
Pretty much.
It was that Byron episode of Smallville. That was my inspiration.
Hey, if that one season of True Detective came out of this episode, it was worth this episode existing.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Yes, it was.
I don't know if I agree with that. So
that season outweighs this episode.
So they find Byron. Clark rips off the chains and goes, "Oh, must have been a rusty padlock."
And Byron's like, "Hey, no, don't take me outside. It's not good. I'm supposed to be here." And I respect that Clark's is feeling like, "Hey, no, you know, this is an abused kid. He doesn't understand that sunlight's good for him."
I get the logic that Clark thinks that this guy's just been programmed to think this, that it's not a literal thing.
It is, but Clark just picks him up and carries him out into the daylight.
Yes.
He doesn't give him a choice.
Now, obviously, before I say my joke here, I'm aware that Clark doesn't know that his powers are, all his power comes from the sun yet. He doesn't know that yet in Smallville lore. But my joke was, as he was carrying him outside, he's like, "Look, the sun makes me feel great. It gives me all these powers. It'll do great for you. It'll never hurt anyone." And then he turns into, Mr. Hyde and runs off.
Yeah, but you know who the sun did hurt? Chuck.
Chuck?
Yeah. The sun is indirectly responsible for electricity. So Chuck from Better Call Saul.
Oh, Jesus. I was trying to think of the TV show Chuck, and I was like, what happened with electricity in the sun and with him? What's going
on? I'm not going to lie. Despite all the bullshit that Zachary Levi has said recently, I forgot that show existed.
I forget him, but Chuck was a good show. It was a fun show.
It was a great show. But I forgot about it because I was wiping it from my mind.
If we can watch a show with Allison Mack in it, we can put up with Zachary Levi.
That's true. Hey, I have to get drunk to get through this show.
So meanwhile, just to sort of build up to the helicopter, but elsewhere in the episode, Lionel's been firing all of his assistants because he doesn't like them. And he's mad at Lex. He likes Martha. He likes a bit of that.
He likes Martha.
He likes that mature ginge. Yeah, that's what he likes.
Hey, he's not wrong.
He's like, "Hey, you're wasting your talents in organic produce. Why don't you make some organic produce with me, baby?"
And it works.
She wants the job.
Despite Jonathan's protestations, she's like, "Hey, I want to do it. Screw you."
She wants to do it because she wants to put her education to use. She wants to do something that's not farm work, and this is what she's doing.
Money.
And he's probably paying well. And she even sort of manipulates him into doing the right thing by the end of the episode by helping Byron, because it was Lionel's fault that he is the way he is. So, with all that in mind, she's helping out around the mansion. Lex is feeling weird about the whole thing, and when her and Lionel try to leave in the helicopter, Byron shows up and pulls a Captain America and holds onto the bottom of the helicopter. And you know what? We did give this some credit. A couple of these shots of him holding this helicopter looked not bad effects-wise. It looked like however they did this with imposing something upon something, it looked all right.
The wide shots looked fine. Like, even by today's standards, fine. The close-ups looked... Okay, they looked a bit wonky.
They looked a bit more green screeny, but
by 2002 standards, you would say, they're pretty good. Like, you would not complain about these effects, especially for an episode in just in a regular episode in the season, not a special episode. Right? These days, if it was a premiere or a finale, that's where you expect them to spend the budget and have the better effects. If this is a random mid-season episode, you expect less than those episodes, and I think this definitely hits the bar of those. Just, hey, it's a mid-season episode. It looks fine for its time.
It looks better than most of the stuff that was in the last episode, I guess.
It does.
I'm getting that.
Honestly, it looks on par with half the stuff on the last episodes of like The Flash that I saw.
I mean, that's fair. more CG, and I mean, obviously this has a lot of CG for its time period. This was obviously pushing things forward in that sense. But those modern superhero shows, of their quota of CG per episode is quite high.
The reality is CG is cheaper now. 20 odd years later than it was then. So they can have more of it on the same budget in theory.
But you still have to spend more time and money to get quality. And
I think the key moment there is time as opposed to money. I think it takes time to render those things, even now. And specifically on a network show, right? They're on a time crunch as opposed to a budget more often than not.
I mean, I'm sure the budget's a concern as well. Let's not pretend that the studios aren't being cheapskates. I mean, have you paid attention to the news?
What was it? 0.2 something % of their annual budgets?
Yeah, would solve all these problems. By the way, by the time this goes out, the strikes might be over. But right now, both the writers and the actors are on strike.
If the strikes aren't over by the time this goes out publicly, then what the hell is going on, Hollywood?
I honestly won't be surprised because we're at about 20 weeks ahead of the schedule, 21, 22 weeks maybe.
Give or take, yeah.
I don't think I'd be shocked if the strikes were still going on.
We should be 5 or 6 months ahead. I said not that long ago that I would expect realistically the strikes, end of this year, start of next year. That is end of 2023, start of 2024. Yeah, you might not be seeing this by then.
Anywho, so Clark comes in. He actually gets thrown back. Byron's strong enough to punch him at quite a distance. Luckily, though, Lionel's still blind. So for the third episode in a row, Lionel is born witness to something, technically, because he's blind.
I can't wait for the episode when we can tell that Lionel's blindness is cured purely by the fact he stops seeing things.
Yes, absolutely.
That could not be explained.
Yeah, so then this is sort of developing a thing where part of the reason why Lionel, I mean, he claims it's because Martha, and we think he's got the hots for Martha, and that's probably true too, but they're obviously doing a thing here where Lionel's got an interest in Clark now, in the same way that Lex is fascinated by Clark because he thinks he's hiding some sort of special ability, and Lionel now thinks the same thing.
They are both right.
They are both right. They're absolutely both right.
That is worth noting. Like, it's all well and good saying, they think this, that. They're right. Yes,
but their obsession with trying to get close and prove it is unhealthy, to say the least. So now that Lionel's taken an interest in Clark, if anything, it's only further confirming what Lex feels, and that's kind of what you see in his face when he responds to those kind of statements. So you see a little bit of that in this episode. Basically at the end of the episode, Lana comes to see Clark and is actually happy that he's honest, that he doesn't like poetry, because he's got a poetry book in he's got a book of sonnets in his pocket.
No.
What?
Book of limericks. It's a lot more low class than sonnets.
No. Limericks are what he gave Byron in the hospital. The book he has at the end are sonnets.
He definitely has limericks at one point.
Yeah, he gives a book of limericks to Byron, and then he looks all sad because Lana holds his hand. That was that scene.
Yeah.
And then we're never going to see Byron again, so that's not going anywhere. Don't worry about it.
Obviously, yeah. Why would you pay a guest actor?
But she's like, oh, you're reading this. And Clark claims it's because, Byron seems pretty cool, so I want to get into what he's into. But really he's doing it to, try and get to know Lana better. And then he's honest and says, no, they're not really for me. And she's like, you know what? That was an honest answer, and I appreciate that. And then they have
Have you tried being honest more often, Clark?
And they have a really on-the-nose conversation where he basically all but confirms that, much like Byron, I have a big secret that I can't tell anyone. And maybe it's because I'm scared that it'll ruin everything and you won't be able to take it. And she's like, well, you have to take that chance if you want love, Clark. But it's all kind of in the third person, so that no one's really admitting anything. But it's very clear that he's effectively saying, I've got something that is at least on par with turning into Mr. Hyde, which is a pretty high bar. That's an extremely big secret that he's hinting at.
It is, because Jekyll and Hyde was already pretty weird.
Which, Lana effectively should be just, if anything, more suspicious than Lex is every episode, with like giving him the side eye and being like, what's Clark hiding? Oh, he's up to something.
She was this episode, at least. She won't be next episode, but she was this episode.
She'll forget next episode. We're not going to do that. I mean, obviously this episode was pretty bad. Byron was a laughable character. I laughed multiple times when he spoke the way he did, when I saw what he was wearing, how he carried himself, the cliche of the parents, like all of it is pretty rough.
Yeah, there's little to actually defend in this episode.
Yeah,
it's mediocre at best.
There's no like positive point you can sort of put your hanger on and say, hey, that's the thing that it hinges around that makes sense.
Well, that's not true.
What?
I gave credit to this episode because
what?
Lex wore a shirt that was a nice light pale purple that reflected Lex Luthor's colors from the comics, being purple and green.
Yes,
but didn't seem extreme and overt and referencey. It was just a nice, it was a reasonable shirt that a businessman might wear, and he didn't wear it in every scene. He wore it in one scene. I think that's relevant.
Do you think this is the first time he's worn green or purple on this show?
Probably not.
Well, so it's just a random color then. It's nothing to do with it referencing anything.
No, they chose this with purpose, clearly.
But but they also choose red and blue for Clark for every single outfit he's wearing.
Are they wrong?
What I'm saying is, though, is that's a consistent choice. With Lex, he's wearing a blue shirt, and then he's wearing a white shirt.
He did wear a t-shirt with a blazer in this episode as well, that I thought was questionable.
Yes, he wore that for the scene where he said, your family's about to start flying a lot, Clark.
He did, yeah.
That was that scene.
Yeah. It was a long sleeve t-shirt at least, but
Yes, little did he know when they wrote that line that it was going to go 10 seasons before he started flying.
Do you know what? Sometimes I forget how long this show is and how much they did not expect that early on.
Yeah. It's clear that they thought, this will be maybe 4 or 5 years and that'll be a nice run.
They thought, we'll get out of high school, we'll do one season in the real world, and then he'll be Superman. And then we had 10 years.
I'm sure when we get to that point, we'll talk a lot about how it should have just transitioned to a Superman show at that point, but they were insistent upon not doing it.
In about 2 seasons' time?
Or 3, because I think, 4 ends with, so I don't want to spoil it, but for people who are watching for the first time, but I think you're fine up to season 5, and then 6 is where, like, okay, why haven't you just shifted to Superman now?
Yeah, if I recall, relatively spoiler-free, 7 is the Justice League season.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's 7.
It's absurd how that's so early, relatively speaking.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's 7.
All right, there you go. That's Nocturne. Did I even say the title of the episode at the start?
I don't think you did.
I don't remember saying that
name.
Yeah, season 2, episode 5, Nocturne is what we were discussing. But yes, this was the Byron episode of Smallville.
That's all you need to know, really, isn't it? It's the Byron episode.
Hopefully you enjoyed it. I forgot to do this last time, but I am going to just tell you what the next episode is, just so we get a bit of a taste.
Okay.
That said, though, I will say, like, these descriptions for some reason seem to be like submitted ones that are too long, so I might just sort of condense it a bit. But next episode is called Redux. The next episode is about a swimmer who mysteriously ages and dies after meeting his girlfriend Chrissy Parker. There's a new principal, and
not Schneider.
It's not Principal Schneider from the hit television show Buffy now. Principal Reynolds, in fact. But yes, so, and there's some stuff with Clark and Lex maybe being best friends.
I vaguely remember the guy aging while swimming.
Although there is an episode of Buffy that I can compare this to just from that description.
Please don't.
There was a swim team episode. This it'll be sitting right there.
Well, I vaguely remember the guy aging. I remember nothing else about this episode.
I remember nothing. I remember absolutely nothing about this episode. So what? There's a girlfriend sucking the life out of him. Is this just the Amy Adams Fat episode? But instead of making her skinny, it's just giving her. I don't know.
From my memory, the guy, he swims like, you know, they do like back and forth across the pool. He swims there and he swims back, and then by the time he gets back, he's like aged to like old age, and then climbs out and dies.
Well, we'll see if that happens next episode.
Like,
then.
That's my vague memory of this episode.
Okay.
There's an old guy dying at the edge of the pool.
All right, we'll see if that proves that memory proves true. But that's been the Smallville episode. Of course, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want more of these shenanigans. Help support them. And we're way ahead on Patreon because we started posting these on Patreon whilst the old season 1 episodes were going up on YouTube. So we're like a season ahead almost, basically, on Patreon. So
I mean, hopefully,
yeah. As long as we don't slow down, that should still be true. So go and check out Patreon. There might be a bunch of episodes to look at. But yeah, like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. This has been your Smallville discussion, or Suffering Smallville, as I've been calling it on YouTube. That's been the title.
I agree. I am suffering.
Suffering Smallville. I was going for a Suffering Succotash kind of thing there, but
a little bit Sean Connery.
Yeah, just saying like Sean Connery, rather than the cat from Looney Tunes. Yeah. Sylvester, that's the name. I was just trying to go with him. But yes, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Keep watching TV. Won't somebody save me?